Welcome to Money Making Conversations. I am your host, Rushion McDonald. Every week, every episode, I talk about, success. I always tell people to stop reading other people's success stories and start writing your own. My next guest, he embraces what I'm about to say here, to lead with your gifts. And don't let your age, friends, family, or coworkers stop you from planning or living your dreams. When we get into the interview, you will understand why I'm saying he embraces that. My interview provides you as a consumer or business owner access to celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and people I like to call industry decision makers. My next guest is Bryce Thompson. He is a serial entrepreneur, event planner, investor, and a business mentor to millennials. At the age of 25, Bryce is considered an exception. He enjoys hosting events open to people of all ages and walks of life, but he caters primarily to the millennial mindset. Like every other Black man in America, Bryce has felt the stings of racism, which is sad. He's just 25. I think at my age, and which I understand the era that I grew up in, that he wouldn't have to experience that, but he is. He's been subjected to the scrutiny and limitation of stereotypes and social structures designed to box those who look like him in a life of mediocrity and poverty. However, in spite of all this, he's carved out a plan for success that is centered upon having an impact bigger than himself. He's the co-founder of TradeHouse Investment Group and chairman of It'll All Make Sense nonprofit. He is on the show to talk about his new book, Millennials, Accepted and Accepted. Please welcome to Money Making Conversation. I'm going to call him a good friend because he's from Houston, Texas, or Missouri City. I know exactly what that's at. Bryce Thompson. How you doing, Bryce?
How you doing? I'm happy to be here, Rashawn.
Oh, great, Bryce. Let's at 25, man, a lot going on in this book, brother. A lot going on.
It's been a good last 5 years for sure.
Well, let's talk about those early years, because I think that's what lays the foundation. Off air, I was just telling you, I remember I was making decisions on where I wanted to go to college. And I'm going to tell you something, man. I didn't really want to go to college, but I just thought I wanted to be a forklift driver. That's what I wanted. I was inspired when I was 16 years old at my first job by these guys. They were Black men. They were living a good life, driving forklifts and unloading trucks. And when I said, that's what I wanted to do. So I always feel that what you see at an early life can drive you to be what you can possibly be as you start to ascend. What inspired you as a young youth to be the man that you are today, and you're still climbing to be even a bigger man than you are today? Talk to us about that.
Right. Well, more surface level, I would say, or deeper rather. I would say my environment for one. My mom especially always made sure I was in, a really good environment. First it started with school. Then she was very particular about the people that I would hang around. So I was always surrounded around people that were out doing great things, like people that were out, striving for massive success. So in turn, that inspired me. And then more surface level, my mom has always been an entrepreneur. She raised, me and my brother strictly off of an entrepreneurial income pretty much our whole lives. So that really inspired me to go out and make something out of nothing. And then even more surface level, my older brother, he was the first person that I saw graduate college, go on to get a good job. And at the time for me, going out, getting a good job, especially a 6-figure income paying job, that was, seeing that as a kid or, a college student, that was like my first figure of success. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got to go to college. I got to graduate. I got to get a good job. I got to be successful. I got to, be able to go out and support myself. So, early on, I'm like, I have to go out there and do something. I can't just stay at home and, be, regular schmegular.
Well, absolutely. I think that and when reading this book, Millions Accepted and Accepted, because I always felt that when I was growing up in life, I have been the accepted, in other words, or the exception. That's basically what that is, where people say I thought differently, I projected my outcome. I came from a Black community. I went to high school in Forest Brook in Houston, Texas. It's not even open anymore. In fact, they've torn the school down. And so my whole outlook was Black. I got on the bus to go downtown, with no more Black people on the bus. When I got back on the bus to go back to my house, with no more Black people on the bus. It wasn't until I was 18 that I started to see diversity in my life. And so
Right.
when did you start seeing a diversity in your life, or was it always there? Because in your book, you talk about how your mother, it was very important that you have a diverse perspective of life, and it really kind of opened you up, correct?
Right. Absolutely. I've pretty much lived a diverse life from as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say early on, I remember being at pretty much predominantly Black middle school and elementary, more so elementary.
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the neighborhood school in Missouri City. I went to Quail Valley. I don't know if you ever heard of Quail Valley.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I went to Quail Valley Elementary School, and from what my mom tells me, and I can't really remember, but she remembers way more than I do, I stood out from a lot of the other students. I made the best grades. I was at the top of my class, and my teachers, they recommended, right? That my teachers recommended that she put me in a higher education. Like she put me around, people that were learning at a more elite level. Mm-hmm. So she started looking into, higher learning schools around the area. She started looking into private schools. And then that's when, that was my first time going to private school back in the second half of like 6th grade.
Right. Mm-hmm. So
I ended up getting into a private school in the Houston area, Fort Bend Academy. I don't know if you've heard of Fort Bend Academy.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna slow you down by Houston, man. I was born, raised, and when I die, they're going to bury me in Houston. So that way you can just keep talking normal about Houston. I know where the Turkey Lug Hut is. I know where West Orm is. I know where Fuqua is. I know South Main runs right smack dab in the middle of Missouri City. I know all that. So you can just talk normal with me, man. We're going to have a good time on this interview, Bryce.
All right, yeah, you know more than I do then, so let me not. Well, yeah, so I went to Fort Bend Academy, and that was the first time where I wasn't in a very diverse environment. Like I was one of the very few African Americans. Mm-hmm. Most of the students that I was going to school with at the time, they came from pretty rich, wealthy, well-off family households. So that wasn't me. It was a little more. I was more of an outlier for the first time. Mm-hmm. But I still did really well in school. Mm-hmm. I still did really well in sports. Mm-hmm. And then I went off to high school. I ended up going back to public school. I went to Lamar my first year. Mm-hmm. I got back into a diverse environment. Mm-hmm. But still at the top of my class, I was in the IB program, still doing really well in school. Mm-hmm. And I also was playing sports at the time. So sports is what put me back into the private school environment, because Lamar didn't have the best basketball program at the time. At least my freshman year. I don't know what it is right now, but I ended up looking into Westbury Christian. Westbury Christian had like top notch basketball program my freshman year. And I transferred back over to Westbury Christian. That was the first time I was in a environment where the education was a lot higher, but it was also still diverse. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a situation where, I was the only Black kid, or I was the only, kid that didn't come from a wealthy or rich family. It was a little bit of everything. And then when I went to Morehouse, I went back into, this environment of like, okay, everybody's African American, everybody's Black. But the one thing that really changed everything for me was the fact that I was at Morehouse around a bunch of people that looked like me, came from similar backgrounds, but the common denominator of all of us was we really, everybody wanted to be successful at Morehouse. Mm-hmm. That was that was a need. It was a necessity. Right. You needed, if you were going to Morehouse, just having that title attached to your name, you had to become something.
Which was really interesting, because, you wanted to go to Harvard. But really, you technically went to Harvard, and that's Morehouse. Right. When you look at the legacies that's tied to that, from a academic standpoint, because I'm always a proponent of advocate, I should say, of what HBCUs. 80% of the Black doctors and dentists come from HBCUs. 40% of the members of Congress who are Black come from HBCUs. 50% of the public schools teachers who are Black come from HBCUs. 24% of the STEM, 27%, it just went up. A study came out of the STEM graduates who are Black come from HBCU. So you went to Harvard. And so, and that getting in an environment that was equally academic competitive, because even when you went to West Christian Academy, that was a competitive environment, because that was, let me just explain to everybody what he was talking about. Lamar University in Houston, right off of Westheimer, is a football powerhouse. I mean, that's a bad school. Now, Western Christian Academy, they recruit people. Like, Bryce might be good, but they won't let him know that they're bringing in 4 more goods. And so that puts you in another competitive environment. So you've always been in a competitive environment. You've always been challenged physically to be better than the person sitting right next to you. So that probably played very well for you in the lanes that you're successful in now, correct?
Absolutely, for sure.
Now, with that being said, when you had the option to go to Prairie View, full ride, the book talks about it. And Prairie View's an excellent institution, right down the street, about 45, 50 minutes from Houston, Texas. Dad took you down there. But that gut didn't sit right for you. Why didn't it sit right for you?
It didn't give me that, like, even though I got a full ride and, it wasn't too far from home, for the first time, I just didn't feel like I would be competing at an elite level. I felt like I wouldn't be, surrounded around, a bunch of people that necessarily, I don't know, like that. It was just that it factor that I was looking for. And that's why I wanted to go to Harvard. Harvard, it's Harvard. Like, when you hear Harvard, it's like, yo, you go to Harvard?
Right. And
then I'll tell them, like, yo, I'm going to Prairie View. And it was more common coming from where I'm from. Like, if you're from Houston, Texas, you're from Missouri City, Texas, right, mostly everybody is going to go to U of H or TSU or Prairie View.
Yes.
So for me, I wanted to step outside the box as far as a school and an institution is concerned. And, I graduated at the top of my class. Like I was the number 10 student, not 10%, but 10, like 10 people in my high school class. So I'm thinking, like, let me apply to Harvard. Harvard never got back with me. And my mom, last minute, I came back from Prairie View. My dad dropped me back off at my mom's house. And I told her, they offered me a full ride and I wouldn't have to pay for school. And, she still could see it on my face that it just wasn't really doing it for me. And then she encouraged me to apply to Morehouse. Got into Morehouse. They gave me a scholarship to a pre-program that they were having over the summer. I went to the campus over summer. I fell in love with it. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I have to come back in the fall. This is the school that I'm going to.
Right.
And I ended up there.
Well, congratulations, because it changed your life. When I say change your life from a perspective, my degree is in mathematics. Okay, and my minor's in sociology. I graduated from University of Houston. Like I said, I went to college because, like in your book, you talk about, that's the way of the world. You go to high school, you graduate from high school, then you go to college, you get this, 5 or 6 figure degree. Next thing you know, you're married and you're happy. That didn't set well for you. Again, that gut. I always love you. You follow your gut. Like I said. Right. And so when you were doing an internship program in Cleveland, great job, great opportunity. 8 to 5. But every day, the excitement of going, according to your book, started diminishing. And that's when you start understanding and admitting to yourself at such a young age, this is not for me. Talk about that.
For sure. So first and foremost, let me just add on to that. I drove an hour to work every single morning. And that was like, that was a little different for me. That was the first time I ever experienced anything like that. So I'm driving an hour. So it was more so like a 7 to 5 or 6 to 5. I had to wake up at 6, leave by 7, get to work by 8. Right. So it was more like a 6 to 5.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And as I'm driving, you driving, you waking up early. It has to be something to motivate you to do that every morning. And for me, the only thing that was motivating me was, if I didn't make it to work on time, they wouldn't offer me a job back or, I wouldn't get paid. But, it got to the point where I felt like I didn't even want a job back. Like I didn't even care if they offered me a full-time full-time job, because this isn't, I felt like this is a part-time job. And for me, it was like a part-time sacrifice. Like sacrifices are temporary for you to live, the way that you really want to. So I understood for me that, that job was something that I necessarily had to do to get to where I wanted to go at that specific time. But for me, it was just part of the really building the foundation. Like I owe that job, as far as being a reason to my success now. Like some of the people that I met and some of the things that I learned, and it was just a humbling experience for me. And now I can speak to it a little bit different when I'm talking to people that are interested in what I do, or, that want to be an entrepreneur and they don't know exactly how to go about it. But that was the first time I was making a little bit of money. Like I was making good money for
absolutely
a college student.
But I always remember, like I tell people, my experience at IBM has always been a blessing because it taught me structure, and that's what you're talking about right now. Right. Working that, and it stays with you. At the time, I didn't really understand what it was bringing. It was just work to me. They send me off to courses, and even though I was based in Houston, they would send me to Atlanta to train, and all those same disciplines that I experienced, I still apply today. And so from an entrepreneurial standpoint, when you're talking to people, all you're doing is about discipline. Like you said, you got up at 6 to start driving at 7 to arrive at 8. That's the same principle you have to do if you're an entrepreneur. You just can't be, just because you run your company, you can't get up at 7 one day, 8 o'clock the next day, or 9 o'clock the next day, or 6 o'clock the next day. There has to be consistency. And that's what your book talks about, is consistency as an entrepreneur, consistency to achieve your goals. Why was that so important to you to reveal that side of secrets, because we always want to know the secrets to success. But that becomes a profound dialogue in your book.
Right. Consistency is a big deal. And, that's really the difference. I find it to be easy to be consistent when, you're heading in a direction of where you want to go. Right. Like, when I was working that job, it was a lot harder to consistently wake up every morning knowing that this isn't something that I want to do. And no matter how early I wake up, no matter how many donuts I bring to the office, no matter how much coffee I buy everybody at the office, I'm still going to get paid the same amount. I'm still going to, do the same thing that I did yesterday. Like the projects never really change. Right. And, I wasn't really living. I felt like I wasn't really living in my purpose. I felt like I was just another number. And once I became an entrepreneur, I could still wake up early, if not earlier. I could stay up later, if not later, because every morning that I wake up, this is another opportunity for me to do something that's going to get me closer to the lifestyle that I really only get to see in my sleep. But, when you work in a job, you can wake up earlier, wake up the same time, wake up a little later, you're still going to get the same results. Absolutely. So, entrepreneurship, as far as the consistency goes, it should be a whole lot easier for anybody because, one, you can't put a cap on your income as an entrepreneur. You can always do something to increase it. Right. And you can really focus on the things that you love to do and make an income out of that. Find a way to support yourself out of that.
Absolutely. I'm talking to Bryce Thompson, the author of Millions, Accepted, and Accepted. One of the things that really, now we talked about a journey up to this point. We talked about the early stages from grade school, middle school, high school, early years of college. You were focused to be an entrepreneur. You were focused to be a 9-to-5er, a 40-hour week guy. You was working on this engineering degree. And then suddenly, your older brother said the magic word to you, Bitcoin. Bitcoin changed your life in 2017. Come on now. And then when you tried to help out this young lady, she stepped back on you.
Oh, yeah, you really was reading the book.
Hey, man.
Okay, cool.
Thank goodness you didn't say her name because she probably track you down and beat you up. But,
she knows. She knows.
You tried to tell her, but she has so much doubt. And that's what you can, like you said, you can't take everybody to success. You can talk to them about it, but they have to have the dream locked in and understand what you're trying to communicate with them. But that your older brother who had graduated from college, who showed you the way, here you are at Morehouse. You have not completed college, but he showed you an opportunity that it was too much to pass up. Talked about that journey into the world of Bitcoin and also investments.
Right. Well, yeah, like I said in the beginning, my older brother, was one of my motivations to becoming successful and, doing something and making something out of myself. So, when he gave me an opportunity, I'm not going to question it too much, no matter what it is. Right. As long as it's legal, like I'm not really going to question it. Or it's, of course, against my morals. But, like we come from the same place. It's my older brother. So when he introduced me to, cryptocurrencies and investing, it was like Chinese to me. It was like a foreign language. Right. But at the same time, I wasn't scared to learn something new, especially being at my job. And that's why that job plays a significant part of my story, because I think I was more motivated because of what I was going through, as an employee over the summer. So when the timing was just perfect. So when he gave it to me, not only was I was making a little bit of money. So it's hard to invest when you don't have anything to invest. Right. So it was for the first time I was making, I had some money in my pocket. So I leveraged that little bit of money that I had in my pocket, and I started making a little bit of money on top of my money. Right. And, it wasn't a whole lot, but at the time I realized, like, this isn't a lot of money, but this is, for me, for a college student, for the average person, this could help them out a whole lot. And that was the first time that I started talking about it. I started telling my friends. I started, telling my family members, start really showing them. And like you said, that the girl that you just mentioned, that's when I really ran into, that feeling of rejection that every entrepreneur is going to experience. Right. That rejection feeling, like she rejected me. I tried to show her, I felt like it could help her, and she shot me down. She made me feel like what I was doing wasn't a big deal. And that was my first time experiencing that. And I even owe, a lot of my, or at least a significant part of my success and early on to her. Like I appreciate that she rejected me. Because some man, you have
a lot of values like me, Bryce, is that I always tell people when they tell me no or they reject me, my goal is to get in front of you. I always tell people, I put my car in front of your bumper. That's my goal. If I'm in front of your bumper, that means you can't go around me. And plus you have to get my license and find out who in front of me. So that's all. So you have that mentality. So you put your goal is to put your car in front of hers. Fortunately, it didn't take much. Okay, because you immediately just doing that ran off the road. That's how quickly you got in front of her, and she's sitting on the side of the road trying to call AAA, but it was too late because you going about your business. But the beauty of this is and the sad part of this is that despite success, despite doing it the right way, you were stereotyped. You put in jail, told you're going to be in jail for 10 days. It wasn't for your frat brother who was there and able to get you out of jail. No telling what direction that would put you. No telling what stereotype situation that would have led to even more incarceration or more frustration. That just that even though you can do it right, because of the nature of racism, it still can stereotype you. But the focus point of what I really like about you, you started the TradeHouse Investment Group with 3 of your boys. You also have the HBCU scholarship campaign that you do with the Scully app. And if anybody don't know what the Scully app is, it's an online search platform that helps high school seniors, and current undergraduates and graduate students match and win scholarships. In that, he has a HBCU scholarship. And by the way, Prairie View A&M is one of the schools on this platform, along with Hampton, Howard, Livingstone, and Morehouse, of course. So my whole thing is that when I sit down and talk to you, Bryce, man, this book, which I'm definitely going to recommend to a lot of people. In fact, I'm going to feature you on my Motivational Monday. So in a couple of weeks, on Mondays, I feature people I think who are making a difference in this world, and I highlight their success story and your story story needs to be highlighted. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to recommend people to get your book, highlight you on my Motivational Mondays. I've done everybody from Shaq. Rick Ross was a couple of weeks ago. So into this week, I think I got Will Packer. Today is Will Packer. He's being highlighted this week. So next week, going to be my man, Bryce Thompson. This book is worth it. I'm going to recommend it. I know people have told you interviewed by Rushion McDonald. Get ready. But brother, I was ready for you because you're an inspiration. You are what I worked hard to make happen. You know, I feel that anything that I do when I welcome you into my studio, realize that it's a blessing for me because it's an honor to understand your values that you were able to understand at such an early age. I didn't figure it out till I was 40. Okay. You figured it out, when you was 22. All right. And you're willing to share it through your scholarships, through your I Am Millennial events. The last one was at the Hard Rock Stadium. Your brother came on here bragging, telling me all those thousands and thousands of people showing up. But I love both of y'all, man. But and just wrapping up this interview, Bryce, anything you want to say to your potential new fans and why they should really invest in reading your book, Millennials Accepted and Accepted?
One thing, I do want to, shed some light on, not really just to anybody that's just supports me, but any upcoming entrepreneur, anybody that, wants to make something great or do something great or get something great, acquire something great. The one thing worse than not having something or acquiring what you want to acquire is actually getting it and then losing it. So, what's big for me and just my whole journey and how I came into the entrepreneurial space and what I'm gonna continue to shed light on, not just in my book, but even specifically within my events, just as financial literacy. I think, especially a lot of people, specifically of color, we come into money or we work so hard to gain something, but we never really understand the power of what it's gonna be like once we have it. And we never really educate ourselves on, what to do when we actually get it. People know how to make money. People know how to spend money, save money. Not a lot of people know how to multiply money. So, just the power of investing and knowing what to do with your money and knowing how to move when you acquire a certain level of success is going to, in turn, allow you to keep it once you gain it. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that I want to shed light on, especially for young entrepreneurs that look like me. Once you actually get it, our job is to keep it. Like our job is to have it 10, 20, 30 years down the line so we can pass it down to the next generation. But Rushion, again, I appreciate the opportunity. Like, people told me about this pod. I've been on 15, 20 minutes early to make sure I was on, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully talking and meeting you in the future.
Oh, we will, man. And again, thank you for coming on the show, Bryce Thompson. He'll be featured on my Motivational Monday on my Facebook. I got almost 1 million followers on there, so a lot of people going to see you. Millions accepted and accepted. Hey, my man, thanks for coming on Money Making Conversation.
Okay, cool.
I appreciate it. If you want to hear or see my interview with Bryce Thompson on Money Making Conversation, please go to moneymakingconversation.com. I am Rushion McDonald. I am your host.